Has everyone got the activity now? Okay, cool.
Oh, okay, so they use. Oh, you like this? So we introduce. You can create. No, so you can create.
Oh, okay, so I copy.
No, so it's making a column back. You can use
You mean unusual? Oh, right.
and then you're going to pass all those into there. So if you're using Sublime, you can pass yeah, I started a little chart with nice.
But it can tell us
Oh. Yeah, and then you put all the style rules inside of there. You can also use the web inspector to look at the styles in line. So if you just like open that,
it still doesn't work.
have,
Am I doing something wrong?
Did you save it?
Yeah. Oh, I did put HTML.
Yeah.
No, so the P goes on the outside.
There we go.
Yeah. And then delete the other. And then you can cut and paste all of that and stuff. Okay. And yes, or you can just drag on down. And then if you go to this in Chrome browser, you'll see what I really want you guys to look at is how you can play with text in the web inspector. So if you go to okay, awesome. So yeah, if you go to inspect element, go down to one of the paragraphs.
Oh, okay, so
you can see like you can use that.
those are the CSS browser automatically. Yeah, I thought so you can't show the direct browser that lot. So what we want to do is use on the sun.
And then here you can try adding a new style, like you could try adding font size. Or
Now I did.
So this way you can kind of play around with it, get the hang of it, and go back and forth. Make sense? Yeah. So, how are you doing?
We're going to
Well, they are for each paragraph, so they could be individual, write the assignment. I think it's just so you can get the hang of language, and if you want to write it instead of class, you can one for each.
okay, so I think it's the same.
Or just go to the web inspector and see what
so when you see
that's really what I was more interested in.
Right.
Use it in class. Hey, is everyone using web inspector? Did you try this out? Yeah, maybe try it in Web Inspector also. You'll learn more CSS more quickly if you do it in Web Inspector because you have less back and forth going back and forth between your code and between the browser. So Web Inspector gives you guys a great way to play around and to learn where you can see instantly what something does.
Oh, okay. So, for example, what do you have on
Oh, it's the Google.
Google Developer tool.
Yeah.
First one, yeah.
Yeah, so look, if you go to that page, you just select
this little window. So you're clicking on the text. You want to add a style to the paragraph. You see that paragraph? If that's where you want to add.
Wow. So is that like the first one?
What do I write here?
Look, element style. You see there's like right above this.
You say that.
For example, so you just add like line height, font size, and then and that'll modify that.
This is supposed to be very easy. It's just like a quick 5-minute exercise. Actually, yeah, we have to move on, so.
Yep. So that's what we want to do for every.
Yeah, so you're
Different.
what is wrong? Oh, you're missing something. So, like here's. Oh, okay. So that's your homework. It should have already been. Add a CSS reference. Okay. Oh, okay. That's a big exercise. Wait, can you just delete that though for now? Just save it and then. That's okay. I just want you guys to play around with what all the different CSS properties do. So like if you refresh the browser now. Okay, so now you have that. So if you just right click and inspect element, then this will give you the ability to just play with it. Like say you want to make the font bold, you could just add some success here, make it bold, or make it on the side. Okay. And that way you like it hang it right away. You see what that will Okay, guys, we're gonna take about another 2 or 3 minutes with that. And you guys will get more opportunities to practice. I promise. I know CSS isn't everybody's thing, but just keep doing your best, guys. You guys are doing great. And raise your hands if you need help, and Jonathan and I will come around to you. Anyone need help? Okay, yeah, we're going to take about another 1.5 minutes and wrap that up, everyone.
Why does in the font family statement, in the value for that property, sometimes there is a quotation mark, sometimes there's not?
So the reason there's not a quotation mark is usually when it's sans serif. And we'll get a chance to answer questions. I want to let everybody work for like another minute, and then I'll answer questions for the whole group.
Okay. So that's actually. Really close. So you do like. So that's what you like. So that's the extra properties.
Okay, how's everyone doing with that? You guys want to take another couple minutes to get to a good point, or you want to bring it to a close? Everybody who wants another 2 minutes, raise your hand. Okay, a few people. We'll give you guys another 2 minutes. Yeah, you can just do it in Web Inspector. I'm mostly interested in you guys learning what these properties do. We already covered linking up style sheets. You can practice that more on your own.
Yes. Oh, so. Okay, so open that browser. So now break. Oh. Copy the URL. Okay, so there. Okay, now you start. So now you can add properties. So he was using. Basically, it wasn't HTML.
Yeah.
All right, 30 seconds. Okay, guys, let's begin to bring that to a close. We've got a lot of stuff to get through today. I know you guys are all anxious to practice that. Yeah, and you guys will get a lot more chances to practice all this stuff later on your homework. Yeah,
Just a quick question.
Sure.
What was the variable for letter spacing again? Was that a pixel?
Yeah, it's pixel. So letter spacing, like most CSS properties, can use a variety of different units. Everyone listening to this, who knows what the units that CSS properties can take on? Who's been paying attention? PX, EM, what's the other one? Percent, pixels, Ms. M's, for those of you who didn't know, are actually the width of one uppercase M in whatever font you're using. So this is useful if, in case somebody makes the font size larger on their browser, everything else gets larger too. And that's when M's become useful. They are a lot more confusing to work with than pixels, which is why most developers choose to work with pixels instead of M's. But M's can be useful as well. So now we're going to move on to talking about custom fonts. Can anyone think of why we would want custom fonts instead of just the few that you have on your laptop, like Helvetica, Arial? They stand out, right? They look good. Yes, sir. You can add more variety to your work. Can I get one more reason? Anyone want to throw out another reason? Those are all great reasons. Yes, sir.
Like brand identity.
Brand identity. That's great. Give yourselves all snaps. Those are all great reasons. So brand identity, they make your work stand out. They give more variety to your work, all that stuff. So how do we add custom fonts? Well, the web used to not have custom fonts. You used to have to rely only on the fonts that were already installed on your computer, right? And a lot of browser manufacturers, mostly Microsoft, wanted it that way. And this should interest you, Jorge. The reason was actually the legality of it. These fonts that people use, that corporations use for their brand identities, all have licenses. So Microsoft and other browser manufacturers were afraid they were going to get sued if they made these fonts available, if they let people provide their own font files for people to download and show in their browser. Because if I can download it to display somebody's website, I can download it to design something else and use it for something else. So it's basically kind of making these fonts free. So there were two solutions that they came up with for that. One of them is what is called OTF, or Open Type Fonts. These fonts are open source, or basically distributed under an open source license. So there is no problem with the legality. The other way is Google and a few other companies have their own way of distributing type that handles the licenses in their own very complicated techie kind of a way. So today we're going to be looking at Google Fonts. Google has a service called Google Fonts. You guys can all go Google it now if you would, please, and take a look at that website. I'll show you real quick what it looks like. So it's basically a directory of all the different fonts you can use. So I can look through here and say, I think this one would look really good on my site, Oswald. So then I go to the page for this, and here's all the characters in the Oswald font. And somewhere it will give me an opportunity to download a link to it. So if I select this font, Oswald, then it gives me these links. So you'll notice that can everyone see the type up here? I'll make it a little bit bigger for you guys. Can everyone see that? Okay. So you'll notice that this link here looks very similar to what? The CSS links that you guys have been using. So you'll include this link at the top of your page, and this will include the font that you've just chosen, in this case Oswald, right, in your document. And now you can use the font Oswald in your document, even if it's not installed on the computers of everyone who will be looking at your web page. Make sense? And then when you want to use it, you just include Oswald in your font family CSS. Everyone with me so far? Yes. Any questions on that?
That's actually really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It is cool.
Just to clarify, for the link, you include that in your HTML or your CSS?
You would include this link in your HTML. This second part goes down to the CSS. Great question, Jorge. Good to be totally clear on that. So this bit down here is CSS. You include this in your CSS to make a specific part of your page, this font. This bit up here, you include in your HTML to include that font on your page. So that way, when you go to that page in your browser, it automatically downloads that font.
I have a question. My previous employer had their own font. So how would it work if the company had the font?
Okay, that is a very good question. The way that would work is, or one easy way to make that work is there are companies that provide custom fonts. Custom fonts can be good for corporate branding, like if your company has its own font. Can we focus up here, guys, for a second while we're talking, and we'll get a chance to work? Thanks. It's just hard to talk like over people. Anyway, so if you have a company that has their own font, you can use a service called IcoMoon, or there are other fonts that companies that make their own font that you can use. basically. Another reason people use custom fonts is for icons. Icons are very heavy in terms of their file size, so it takes your web page a lot longer to download and a lot longer to load if you're including a number of icons. So a lot of times when you see web pages that use a number of different types of icons, they're actually a specialized font. Bootstrap has their own specialized icon font called Font Awesome that we'll get into talking about more when we talk about Bootstrap. I know it's awesome. So you guys will have a chance to play with typography now on your own. We're going to get another 11 minutes to work on this activity. Jonathan's going to slack it out now. Does anyone have any questions on custom fonts before you get started? You're just going to go to fonts.google.com like I showed you. Pick out a font you want to use. Include the link at the top of your HTML page, and then include the CSS in part of your CSS. Does that make sense to everyone? Everyone clear? Yes, Martha. Yes, it will work if you have that link on your page already. This link on top will have to be in your HTML already for it to work in Web Inspector. And guys, if any of you should finish early, you can try to install Font Awesome too. But we'll cover that as a class later. Font Awesome is Twitter's icon font that I just mentioned.
Should that link go before or after our CSS link?
It doesn't really matter in this case. It shouldn't really matter. That's a good question. It's good to think about those things, but in this case, it does not matter. The only time, actually, if in your CSS, you're including the CSS to make the font a certain color, then it should go before. Should go before the link to include the font file should go before that font is referenced in the CSS. So if that style sheet is referencing it, then it should go before. Yeah.
So for the font, awesome. Is that help with like browsers?
Yeah. Oh. No, not really searching. No, it's just your site goes faster because the number of icons. A lot of sites like Yahoo, for instance, did you see some clients? Responsive, they're faster.
Yes. So we're gonna do, you're gonna look for font you want.
Oh, just any one line.
And then, for example, let's click this first one.
No, I just
So I
want
can
to
show you
show
how
you.
to use it.
So it's not on the Oh, okay, that's.
And you're gonna put that in your HTML,
I don't think.
and that in your CSS. That's where the HTML page. you
Okay, so how do I?
And right after the button.
Yeah, I can get models of mine.
Right after
Yeah.
the button.
Oh, right.
So you
Maybe there's an older version, of it, you can still use it.
Yeah,
I don't think they would just bring it for everybody.
There's font on
Yeah,
it.
their site's already working out.
There's font awesome for them.
Yeah.
That's what I have to use right now. I can get mine to work on my
You have
website. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that must be fine.
Okay, and you're gonna go with fonts.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna put that in your shape.
Okay, right.
Yep.
Okay, basically.
Yeah.
So just say something.
Yes, so you also need to link your CSS.
Right, and then it still works, but it wants to put it up. We can see, yeah, we can set up, I'll look it up on Great Data here.
Great.
So we're gonna do the Google fonts for
Oh,
it?
yeah.
Try it. Okay, well, we'll try it again as a class.
It's the same thing, yeah. Oh,
So, yeah.
Oh,
Put it before your CSS. Put that on the font first, and then your Okay. So now back up.
Oh.
Wow.
Just find a different font and replace it with that. You can see if you can change the font.
It's been a long time to
Oh, this is. Okay, that's one. What else were you gonna say?
But you know what, I know the answer, but it's,
I don't trust myself.
yeah. Cause I'm afraid that I'm sending all my information and then I have the right answer. I don't get it, I don't get it, it was just right last week.
No. Look at
One of them did it, one of them worked and the other one didn't.
Okay, you guys want about another 2 minutes to work on that?
You tell us why some work and what don't.
Yeah.
Yes, I can try that.
So this one.
Okay. What are all the comments?
The traveling then.
Well, I see.
Yeah. Strange. Okay, so let's go back to our HTML.
Didn't I use it?
No, your HTML and.
Oh, I know. Okay, so you're using
Okay, so first of all, your comments are coded here.
Chrome and maybe applying slash user.
Carrier, so
Are these two?
no, for the comments, like that's reference here. So you just go dash, and then it starts with it, so that way it doesn't show up in your actual
Right,
document.
right,
It's
yeah.
just a note for you. It's supposed to start with it. So, what we're looking at is why is this value not showing? Did you include it in your CSS?
So, but if you don't, never mind, I think I.
Yeah, if you have to do two things, you have to include in this link, tells it to pull down that font from the page, or make it available in CSS. And then in the CSS, you're gonna write font series, and the name. So is this link to your CSS file?
No, I closed it. No,
Okay, yeah, so you have to link that to your style sheet.
This one came
Bottom.
No, since it's already.
This is good.
Okay, let's look at
Let's save it, we'll save it.
I did the
Save that.
I'm sure.
then let's do the offer.
And I love it because it doesn't even go with this one.
All under
Yeah, you see, you know,
all
they use it.
But, you gotta watch your cancel case, not open case. So make all of your CSS properties separated by dashes, and that way you won't, that's like the convention looks try to use, that way you won't get confused. Obviously, these cancel cases.
Okay.
Just makes it easier, so you don't get confused. Right, you guys want about another 1 minute to work on that? All right, everyone, let's start to bring that to a close and we can review the entire exercise as a class. How did everyone do with that? 1 to 5? About a 5, so everyone got it. Was everyone able to add a font from Google Fonts? Okay, awesome. Was everybody able to see it show up on their page? Yeah? The size, that's font dash size.
No, I know, but it's like you reference it as like the actual icon, you give it an ID and do it like that, or?
So you're talking about Font Awesome, the icons? Yeah, so you give it an ID, you write the CSS for it. So you give it the class for your Font Awesome class. Font Awesome works with classes. You don't do that in the CSS. So it'll usually be like an I tag. You'll give it a class, and then you set the size in CSS. So you can do I.fa star is font size 10 pixels, and that'll match everything starting with an FA class.
Give it a width and
Yeah, so you can do that with CSS. Just write the CSS for it. Okay, so I'm just going to demo this. It looks like most of you guys got it, but I'm just going to demo this for the whole class in case any of you didn't. So this is what most of you guys' CSS should have looked like. I prefer putting the Google Fonts link on top. Somebody asked about that, but I guess it doesn't matter since in this demo they have it on the bottom. The reason I like to have it on top is that way the font loads first and you know your font will already have loaded when you request it in your CSS. So if we go and open this in a browser, you can see that we have our fancy font here. The font that we're using here is Roboto, which is actually a very common one designers love to use all the time. So if I want to make more text Roboto, somebody asked, can I put the font family in the browser as a fancy font from Google Fonts? And the answer is yes. Yes, you can. So I'm just going to set my font family here to be Roboto, comma, sans serif. Or even just Roboto. Then I can set the font size. What do we want to set it to, anybody? Big, small? Big. So what, about 36 pixels? Try that. Yeah, sorry. Okay. So I hope this is making sense to everyone. How many of you guys got to try out Font Awesome as well? Okay, a few of you, and we're going to go over that in more detail later. For those of you who didn't quite catch that, that's okay. I'm going to explain it again. Font Awesome is an icon font from Twitter. It allows you to, one, leverage all of their icons, kind of like clip art, and you can download them really, really quickly. So your websites will be really, really performant when loading these fonts. Also, a lot of people do it, so your site will be sleek and sort of forward-looking. A lot of sites you look at probably already use them, and you didn't even notice it. One site that, of course, uses them is Twitter. So if we go to twitter.com, you can see all of these things are actually Font Awesome icons. And when I inspect them, you'll see the I tags that have the FA class on them when it drills down to here. So we have a span class, and it has the class of icon search. Somebody was pointing out they just changed the names of the CSS classes they use for these icons with Bootstrap 5, but it's still basically the same idea. You add an HTML tag that has a class, and it adds in that icon for you in a very, very fast, very modern way. Any questions on Font Awesome, high level? Okay. So yeah, you guys will get a chance to use Font Awesome more, but this is just sort of an appetite whetting to introduce you to that. Any questions on Google Fonts, using fancy fonts, including fonts on your website?
So I noticed that one of the websites for font size, we use PT, not PX. Yeah, Pixels preferred?
Yes, pixels is preferred, and here's why. PT is actually a measurement that's designed for print, not web. So you'll get all different types of results depending on what the screen resolution density of a device is, what browser you're using, all kinds of things. So it can throw it off. A lot of people do that. That's sort of like a rookie mistake. The only time you would use points in CSS is if you're using CSS for a print document, because CSS can also work for print as well as web, but usually it's sort of just a rookie mistake. People come in, they're used to using like Microsoft Word, which uses print measurements, so that's why. So yeah, so maybe the people at your office who say they're awesome aren't as awesome.
Yeah, I guess the developers at my company aren't that awesome.
Yeah, well, yes, now you can show them up in a very nice, like loving way. Yes.
Is there a chance that font thing top and then regular font?
Yes, there is a chance. There's a chance for anything. So this is designed around the principle of what is called graceful degradation, which means that if something stops working, it will degrade itself gracefully. So that's why you use font family, and you provide a backup font. So your site should look almost as good with the backup sans serif font as it does with the fancy font. So that way people can still read it, like it still works. They still get all the information they need to, but they just don't have that font there if Google stops working, which it shouldn't. Awesome. Awesome question. Any other questions? Are you just stretching?
In that case, you can just double the font and save inside the photo.
Well, that's what open type fonts are designed for. Open type fonts are fonts that use an open source license. A lot of these fonts on Google Fonts don't use open source licenses, so Google uses a lot of fancy technology mixed with fancy legalese to sort of protect the publishers of these fonts from having their fonts pirated and used against their will, but also it lets people see the fonts that they want to see without having to worry about piracy. Jorge could probably tell you guys more about that stuff than me. But yeah, that's basically why, because of privacy concerns, those fonts are the intellectual property of the publishers that design them, right? So they don't want their intellectual property used without getting paid. So that's what Google Type is designed for. It's designed to keep the intellectual property of the typeface publishers secure. Does that make sense? No? Okay, does it make sense to some of you guys at least? Yeah, okay, so basically there are companies, right, that design typefaces. That's how they make their money. So at first, when they first started putting those fonts on the web, they were worried that they would start losing money, right, because their fonts would become freely available on the web. Anybody who wanted a font could just go to that website and download the font and use it on their own flyer or their own website that they're creating. The font publishers did not want that because then they would be losing money. Then people wouldn't have to come and pay them to buy a font if they could get the font free on a website and use it without a license. So Google Fonts is designed in such a way that it helps to mitigate some of the piracy concerns.
But we're still using the font.
You're still using the font on your website, but it makes it harder for you to download it. And they also work out some things on the legal end as well as the technology end. So it's kind of a combination of a technological solution that they've come up with to stop people from pirating the fonts mixed with some legal measures as well. Yes?
So if, do they get paid when we use the font?
I don't know the specifics of how the payments work and the legality, but it's designed to protect the font publishers.
Simplification, couldn't you just draw parallels to how Netflix works? It's not, you don't have the movies on your computer, it's not piracy. Just have the access to them.
Yeah, that's a great point that you could definitely do that as a parallel. It's more like streaming. So you don't have access to it. You can't go create your own flyer or your own website with one of these fonts, but you can view their website. So yeah, so it is a lot like streaming. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions on fancy fonts before we take a break? Okay, guys. Yes, sir.
Let's say, let's say I have a font in my computer that I want to use in my website. That particular font. Is there a way that I can do that font inside the
Yes, so if you have a font that's not on here, that's not on Google Fonts, it's only on your computer and you want to put it on your website, that you can use the same method that I was telling Jacqueline. Use a service called IcoMoon, which will take that font and convert it for you into an OTF font or a web font. Okay, so everybody write that down. In fact, IcoMoon is a site that will help you if you ever want to make your own web font.
ICO.
Yeah, IcoMoon.
For open source, right?
For open source fonts. And I think they might have some kind of legal measures they put in place too. Does that answer your question, sir? Okay, good. Awesome. Give yourselves a hand. We're going to take a quick 20-minute break. We will be back at 8 p.m. sharp. Yes. Okay, no, my bad. We're going to take a 15-minute break. We'll be back at 5 till 8. Thank you. So you shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah, this is basically it. So
No, because I try to make it what is sticky, but it's not. So.
I haven't met you yet, right? You were here, you're like, oh, I'm Siobhan. I'm like, I haven't seen you. You were here for long.
Yeah, he was here last.
I don't remember. Maybe go like this.
No, that's good.
How are you? How's everything?
P is pointing the things like
Because you're basically styling
all the P. Got you.
Oh, exactly. I worked through this.
someone helping.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then open on the export, make copy.
I'll change it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I just.
You know, like everything, it's my five.
But because it's open in the export, so you can copy. I mean,
What happened if I like over? Yeah, they're halfway through.
Okay,
So they're.
so see here.
Yeah, so it's like the numbers are like the further. I don't have to get there, we're busy. So. Like it's like fear. My phone comes to end and so I have to take the next one.
Yeah.
You gotta be there too. And then halfway through, you're like, I have to get myself in too.
okay.
Mine's
Great. Is it missing here?
No, that's right, so that's what I was checking right now.
Everyone had issues with that, so they got issues. Yeah, you guys can visit. We ran around like crazy for it, but see, you were in here, you were just getting it. The ones over here. I'll change it for Saturday. But yeah, every class you have to log in. And the icon, and then because after 6:30, like the 32 can tell you when to meet, and then it's not allowed to log in. So if that ever happens, because no one ever gives it on. Oh my god! Well, you should check it me too. You missed one.
Taking that.
Are you doing good? We guys know if you guys are needing anything. You guys don't slap me, right, Pedro?
Amy, can you, look this really quick? I'm not
Sure.
So, looking at this, style, let's see something. You contact to make it obvious that. Whenever I reach it doesn't grab it, it doesn't show up, however, it is that.
You didn't have to type it.
Really?
That
So what did you type?
Just copy it from another.
Yeah. Do you have another?
Got it, next
Yeah.
I can do that.
Type it or text it.
Deployment?
Yeah.
Where do you,
No,
Oh, we can use one.
oh, that's why I was like, you're totally changing your, you guys do like a lobby?
I have like 3 times, so that's a combination.
You mark your goals. You will, we'll make sure we do that. That's our goal.
I was just talking about.
His wife.
Yeah, right there. GitLab is what,
GitLab is.
Because we're using GitHub for the homework and the pages and all that.
Right, so GitLab you'll use to turn in your homework. So GitHub, you use GitHub, you post your homework on GitHub, that's a repository for your code. It's the same way you'll share your code as a professional. When you go out into the world, you'll get people links to your GitHub repositories. GitLab is just for this course, and so you can hand in your homework. So you're gonna upload your repo to GitHub. So you're gonna make it available on
Okay,
people
so
on
you need to have the
GitHub
same
Docs,
one
the
as-
way I showed you to, so it'll be a GitHub business page. Then
You're
you'll
using it- you're
upload
using
that
this one.
link to GitLab.
Right.
And then that will consist, so
When
turning
you
in
say
your homework
Bootcamp,
has three.
okay.
yeah, Bootcamp.
Yeah,
Only two, right? The
Because they're
Or
all-
where it is,
Right.
going type, and this.
right,
Oh,
three
yeah,
times
you did
five.
everything. How do
This one.
do this?
Okay, how did you handle that?
Okay. Okay. Okay, really good.
So show me where you go to upload the homework.
Okay.
Okay. And I was gonna write some notes to create a homework for the coming one.
So I don't know what it is.
What are you looking for,
The homework.
Okay, yeah, that's what I get when I log in.
Okay, so I think it's GitLab.
Yeah, so GitLab, you can pull,
Is it GitLab?
post it
Where did they turn their homework in? It's on GitLab, right? That's where they post.
No, they put up copies of
GitHub, right,
We're gonna
GitLab.
the URL on GitHub.
Oh, right.
And
Post it
then put
into-
the links
Oh,
here.
To Bootcamp, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you post the link in there, right, so when you go to turn your homework, you'll take the link that you created on GitHub, which has the link to your GitHub pages in the description, and you post that link to your GitHub repository right there.
So what are we doing with GitLab?
GitLab is for you to see all the homework and
The
the,
directions and
right,
all that.
that's where we
Oh,
post it,
I
that's for you guys.
It's so
Sorry
confusing.
about that, yeah, there's
Okay.
kind of a lot of moving parts, some of it is our own proprietary stuff, some of it is GitHub, which should be professional.
No, I just want to make sure I understand the.
Yeah, no, yeah, sorry, it's.
Because that we used to prior to all the changes, we don't used to use GitHub. And then GitHub is very expensive, there's so many people doing commits on there that it's just crazy. So they had GitLab, but GitLab used to make the syllabus and all that stuff on there.
So on the,
They give you directions.
on the homework, how can I create?
Like, there's stuff in here that.
I think he's gonna be going over that media things, you can go over.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, I'll go over the homework and media queries. I would recommend though, don't do that homework, do the bootstrap homework, because everybody in this industry uses bootstrap. Yeah, you'll be robbing yourself.
I mean, it says, part of the homework, so.
I know, well, there's two homeworks you can choose to do media queries instead of bootstrap. I don't know if they didn't say that. I'm gonna tell everybody in the class at home. It'll be a lot better.
Okay, so the original idea was one or the other, but you want us to do.
Yeah, I want all of you guys to do the bootstrap, and I'll go over that with the
Okay,
whole
so
class.
what they fixed it, I sent it over.
Well, Sherman says one can submit things on the BCS.
He can, he has our rights,
Right.
so he was able to see everything, I just slapped him too. Yeah, I slapped him, so they told me they were able to change it, and I put it here.
Okay,
Asked him, he slapped me too.
let's
I mean,
see.
he just slapped me, like, back him, asking him if he was able to. From my understanding, they fixed everything.
The homework week 2, well, like, remember the first week, it was either the portfolio.
Here's what this is. So it says, it says, you need to out and she don't be able, but then he sent me Mara.
This
so
is
he
homework
can go
1.
back and then he fixed it.
But when you go into,
Okay,
when
so
I
maybe
downloaded
he
these.
try.
So he probably has, yeah, so he will have to log out, log back in.
Okay, and then try again. Okay, I just
Try again.
told, yeah, I just told him to check.
He's sucking now.
Yeah.
He's selecting Sherman, who's selecting me.
And he also like Taylor.
Oh,
Yeah,
did he?
the other, TA for the money.
Hey, what's up?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, he put it in a group chat with.
I
finished it.
Oh.
I mean, Bootstrap is just a lot.
Did you do the wireframe one, or is it?
No, full portfolio.
Yeah, they probably could use the other tab model.
So this guy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You try making the window wider and narrower. That's pretty good, I mean, for this assignment, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that looks good to me. I think that this might need more padding here. Can you show me the examples?
I might have it with me, if it helps.
Yeah, time for 5 not to slack me. I'm slacking him too, but.
Okay. He's with, you know, the
Yeah, but because I spoke to him on Monday.
Yeah, I would give that more padding, just take another look at them, make sure everything matches up.
All the answers, he had survey results, you can see all that. So that's where they said they were, they took a ticket and they said it was fixed.
Okay.
That's my bad, not on.
No, so now I'll let him know that.
Okay.
Well, you're gonna just see.
Anything have more padding than what they have.
Okay.
I do like
But
the
go back here, something else. Yeah, see in here, the right column connect with me, look at theirs.
Yeah, I just want to forward
That more.
the
So, yeah, see that.
This is not always gonna be the same. He's not always gonna be the same. They're gonna change. On what you're going.
But,
So it's how I do from
Got it.
one.
Okay, so we do it.
I guess. look this
Just go
file.
through here and just schedule
Okay.
the time.
Yeah, schedule what's
Round you, round you out.
Pixels, it's also versus padding on the sides. Should have like 10, that looks like pixels padding on each side, I would say. Maybe 15 pixels padding on each side, 20 pixels padding on the bottom.
Okay, not a problem.
Yeah, okay, cool. Try that, let me know.
One thing though.
Yes.
Because I keep having issues with GitHub. I tried to Git audit and everything, but the only thing I'm actually meant to add was the assets folder that changed. Everything else is stuff from 2 days ago.
Did you change any of those things?
Via,
2 days?
yeah, I made all those changes from that you see here on.
Okay, and it's not showing up.
Yeah, that was from Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, from when I actually did that. And the only thing.
Are you sure you're in the right folder? You're not in your GitHub.io folder or some other folder?
No, yeah.
Okay, we gotta start class in 1 minute.
Okay.
Yeah, we can work with it. We'll get you figured out.
Not a problem.
Okay. Okay, guys, welcome back. We are going to get started in 30 seconds. Snaps. We got a lot to cover today, guys, so let's stay focused here. We said we're starting at 5 to 8. We're going to start at 5 to 8. Welcome, Madison. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about pseudo styles. As if CSS couldn't get any more confusing and annoying and weird, guess what? It's going to get more confusing, more annoying, more weird. Now we're going to have pseudo styles. What does pseudo mean, Samuel?
Fake. Or
fake, or kind of, sort of fake. Kind
imitation.
of that, right. Like you could be a pseudo-intellectual or a pseudo, like me. No, I'm just kidding. So pseudo classes are kind of, sort of classes, but not really. I told you it was going to get more annoying and more weird. Okay, so would anyone like to read for me?
CSS has keywords that can be added to selectors. These highlight the special states of a selected element. Great example. CSS can hook onto specific moment when a link is hovered over using the hover pseudo class. The pseudo class is found here.
And here's a link. So all of you guys will get these slides. You can go check out this link. These are a few of them though. Active, any, checked, default, directory, disabled, empty, first child. The ones you'll be using most here are hover, focused, sometimes first child, sometimes last child. A number of these you won't be using. And child is one to get, like, say you want the third paragraph. Inside you could use end child 2, and that would get the third paragraph. It's 2 and not 3 because computers start counting at 0, which we'll talk more about when we talk about JavaScript. Then end last of type, it gives you sort of similar functionality, but a little bit more complicated. So those are the ones you're going to want to use most, and I can show you how they work on a regular website. We can go back to Twitter. That should be a good example.
Hi, guys.
Good night, Siobhan. Yeah, drive safe. So, say I want to inspect this, see what's happening in the world right now text. What do I do? Right click on it, right guys? Right click on it, inspect. So now you'll see I have these little buttons on the side. These are for adding pseudo classes. Yeah, well, we've said to be back at a certain time. So, guys, this is just let this serve as a lesson. When I say we're back at 5 minutes till 8, we start at exactly 5 minutes till 8. I'm not going to give you guys padding and time to come back. You guys are all web developers now. You're all high-powered professionals. I expect you guys to be back on time. Or be ready to study on your own if you're not back on time. Welcome back. Okay, it's all good. No worries. Okay, so what we're talking about, for those of you who missed it, since there are a lot of you, we're talking about something called pseudo classes. Yes, we can absolutely make it bigger. So for those of you who weren't here, pseudo classes are a way of adding on a sort of class that sort of works, but not really. What I told the rest of the class was if you thought CSS couldn't get any weirder and any more annoying and any more confusing, with this next lesson, it's about to get more weird, more confusing, more annoying, because now we're talking about pseudo CSS classes. So pseudo means something that kind of is, but not really. Like you could call somebody a pseudo-intellectual, That kind of thing. Make sense, guys? So what these pseudo classes allow you to do is they allow you to append stipulations basically onto your CSS style rules. Like you could tell something only add this style rule if an element is being hovered over by a mouse, and then take away that style rule when it stops being hovered over by a mouse. And I can do that here by adding a new style rule. If I add this plus sign at the corner here, it will add a new style rule that matches the CSS selector for the element I have highlighted. Does that make sense to everyone? That's kind of a bunch of industry jargon thrown together, but should make sense. So now I'm just going to add on the pseudo class hover, right? And we're going to make it color. We'll make it dark gray. This is the hexadecimal color for dark gray. So that's this div. Let's make it more noticeable. Let's make it red. Okay. So now in theory, sorry? Yeah, so let's see. So it's still not making it red. So we're going to fix this. So what I can do is there's a button here that makes it hover automatically. So now I can give it a class of hover. And it should force the state red. Now, it's not.
Doesn't color not do anything?
It should cascade down, but that's a fair point. So let's try it here on a H1 tag. And then I'm just going to hit plus here to create a new style. Add colon hover onto the end of it, and then we'll make that color red. Sorry, you can't really see it here. Ugh. It's always when I have like a bunch of people watching me, stuff never quite does what it wants to do, and then when I'm by myself, it's fine. Yeah, so yeah, every time at work when my boss was like looking over my shoulder, the thing I was working on would never ever work, and then he would go away and it would work perfectly. So that's sort of what's happening here. But just give me a second here, guys. Okay. So we're going to put color red. There it is, because I have this hover on. So then when I turn the hover off, it's that. Now when I hover over it, it turns red. When I hover off of it, it should go away. Oh, because this is still selected. Okay, so now when I hover over it, it's on. I hover off of it, it goes off. So you guys have all seen these types of mouse over effects before on links and stuff. This is one good way to do them. And all of those other classes that we looked at in our slides do pretty much the same thing. So I'll just go back to this list for a second, because I know some of you weren't here. So you have all of these. So first child, can anyone guess what that one does? It selects the first child. So if you do P colon first child, if you do div / my div colon first child, it would select the first child inside that div. So if the P, it would select the first P inside that div. You can also do nth child, where you give it the number of the child you want to select.
On the table 2, would that work for like a header or the first column of the table?
Yeah, so if you wanted to do like TR colon first child, you could do that, or TR colon TD colon first child. I think it's the first one of that order and not the parent element. You apply it onto the child element. I'd have to get back to you about this. I don't even remember some of this stuff. I've been doing CSS for years. I just kind of like look it up or play with it and then figure it out. But yeah, it does that. So you could absolutely use that on a table if you want to select like the first child or first TR or TD. In that table. So disabled elements can be disabled, like form elements you could set disabled on a form element, and then this style would allow you to apply a style that's just for disabled form elements. If you have a web app that has form elements that are going to be disabled. Focus means that you're focused in on a certain element, like when you click on a text input on a website, and sometimes you'll see a little border around it or something. Have you guys all seen that? Like when you put your cursor inside a text box and then there's like a little blue border around it or something and all of a sudden it's highlighted. They do that using this focus property. Hover, we just saw. A lot of these you guys will probably never use. Full screen is a way of targeting elements only when it's full screen. You could make things turn a different color or do something different with your styling when the browser is set to full screen. You do that option available to you as well. So there's a lot of different interesting things you can do with these pseudo classes. And so we're going to give you guys an exercise now so you'll have the opportunity to try out pseudo classes on your own. Jonathan? Yeah, any questions on pseudo classes while we're sending that out to you guys? Any questions at all? Now's the time to ask us, Madison.
So how do you know where it's?
So how do you know where to use them in your CSS? Well, we talked about style rules before, right? So you write style rules that match up with your HTML sort of. So say you have like an A tag and you want all of your A tags to turn red when you hover over them, right? So you would have the style for your A tags. You might decide all of your links are green. They're like 12-point font. They're Roboto font face from Google, right? So that's all the regular styling for your links. So then you would say, copy that CSS selector. In this case, it would be an A, and you would write A:hover. And then you would make the color, say, red when it hovers over. Does that kind of make sense? And I can get with you on that individually. Yeah, I will. But is that high level? Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah, sure.
I have a question. So that's what commands, for example, like when I go to a website and I hover over, like, it enlarges the text. Does that go more into like JavaScript or?
No, you can do that stuff just with CSS. With these, so like when you hover over a link, we made it red. You could also make the text size bigger. You could make it bold. You could make it underscored,
So
underline.
pseudo commands for that.
Yeah. So hover is the pseudo command for when you hover over the mouse. Hover over an element with the mouse. Then active is the command for when something's active. You could also write a pseudo selector for when an element has focus, like a text field has focus. When you have the cursor in the text field, you could write a CSS style just for that. It will go away when you move the cursor. Okay, so is this making sense to everyone, kind of? I know it's hard to wrap your heads around. I told you it was going to get weirder, more annoying, more confusing. I never lie, except when I'm lying. No, I'm just kidding. I never lie. Yeah, so it's going to get weird. It's going to get annoying. It's going to get confusing. Stick with it. We'll have moved past CSS by next week, and you guys should take this opportunity now to really get the most out of it. Okay? So has everyone gotten the exercise? Did we get the exercise sent out?
Yeah, it's already out.
Okay, it's already out. You guys are working on the exercise. Feel free to work with partners on this exercise if you guys want to, or work by yourselves, whatever you want. We'll be coming around.
So that's going to go on your CSS. So let's remove that. So for example, so let's say, what do you want to change the color? You need something more safe that you want to change the color.
Yeah.
So that's what you get started out. Let's say we hover over each more time. Oh, you want to see the text? Oh,
but for now, let's just see where you are and you can get used to it.
yeah. So, if we change this
Oh, okay. So let's see if we can make something. So let's see if it goes in. The one you're working on, you can sometimes when you get class activities.
oh, you're gonna replace that?
Okay, right. So you right. So we're gonna let's do this. Let's put it on a type. Oh, we're seeing a type. I just made for the configuration.
So that's gonna be.
I mean, that's make like this to this.
Okay, so remove the, so move that in there. If you save it like that, that's what's gonna make up. So the only thing you're gonna add after that is right after the H4,
And you're gonna put the close, you're gonna have to go with closing tag. So the same, yeah, it's the same one, but it's. And then hover.
Okay, so that means,
So now
hover over the H.
It's called an attribute, which is like
So
something
that
that
should
should
work.
now,
Now, let's link
in
it.
the H wrap is where it needs to be. Isolate or something. So in here, it's gonna take this state, no, on the outside. So it's gonna be A space H R
Text slash CSS.
equals. Then quote, you want to put like H, colon slash.
See that.
I know this is, right, this is how I.
Yeah, that's generally what I want.
And then HTML.
So then that's, so let's go back.
So it did-
I see that.
So I don't have 4 links.
So, go back to your browser.
And then detail break, it's just, so it looks.
So you see that it's just up here.
I haven't done it. I haven't touched it.
We're missing something else here.
So you can go back. Okay, so now let's go back.
What about your, you have nothing to
So now we're.
I put 4 links.
And then curly brackets. So now you're writing styles that will apply to every tag on the page, every event. So if you want your banner to look a certain color, you'll use. So connection, it's not just line.
Is that the correct?
What's the one? So did you do this? You type an A, it says tag. So if you link your home number, so all I do is typing default.
Yeah, it's control S.
And then I, yeah. I put
Oh,
two line breaks.
Yeah.
So the line breaks, make it like that.
Like, right? I just copy to see.
Change the name, have a pseudo style, so it lights up. So now you're gonna go down, do line.
And then we'll put some CSS.
Yeah, past that, yeah, past that. Then now you're gonna do A colon double. So A is the selector that selects all the A tags on the page, so that's saying they get all the A tags on the page. And you can run it out. Right.
Oh, right, oh, right.
Now
No,
now
that's-
we're gonna have bullets.
RDF.
That's what's called a pseudo tag, which is a clear.
Okay, so that's just. Yeah, so generally we want to reuse that for
So
photos.
you can find the style when you're hovering.
So now, yeah, that's like the only difference is you're gonna add those colons and then the pseudo class is gonna be hover and the code is. Yeah.
You can only use, the pseudo classes.
Selectors.
Okay, cool, so now.
No, you can definitely.
Oh, me.
So. Okay.
Yeah. So that font, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's not actually. So try like 900. This is number, yeah, no, that's one of the few ones you want to. But yeah. And now when you mouse over to see all that's available and. And then, so please find it, see if we can make it get smaller and bigger. Is there actually, yeah, I get it.
Okay.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's true, it has to match up. So, I mean, take it slowly, be methodical about it, take it one step at a time. Be sure you're gonna do stuff in the time to like really look at things. So take you know, then you take the time that it takes to like really. Okay, how's everyone doing?
What is active specifically? Is it? So that's generally more for example, buttons. Okay. Well, so button has have very have a state. It have the extra state with the hold. Yeah. And it has focus states. So focus is generally, for example. See, that's focus. That's right. Yeah. So we're focusing on.
Okay, raise your hands if you want another 2 minutes to work on this. Okay, a lot of you.
It could. So action would be. But I hold it to make things blue. Blue and under. Oh, maybe the focus over. Yeah, so you can't really see that much. So when you click and hold, it's also focus on it. Yeah. So that's what you can see. So those are the three states that you get when Yep.
Do you have to specify default for a pseudo class, or can you just, what do you mean? In the instructions, it says their default active focus states, is that default just without?
Oh, right. So with the default seems like just you're.
I figured.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
Okay, so we're right there. Here has two of us.
Oh, I see. Okay, so say that.
Maybe that's
So that's the way you're gonna.
It wants to fall.
How you know the default?
It says
because the default there, right? Okay.
So that's
Okay, 30 seconds, guys.
yeah, because you want to make sure you're
Yeah. We're going to touch on Bootstrap today, and on Saturday, we're going to have a whole class on Bootstrap. So depending on how quickly we can get through the rest of these exercises, we'll cover some Bootstrap today, and I'll go over the homework with you guys.
The next homework is for Monday.
The next homework is for Monday. On Saturday, we're going to be talking about Bootstrap. Okay, so we're going to get started again, guys, if you all want to focus up here. One important note I was going to mention, your homework gives you two different options. One of them is for media queries, and one of them is for Bootstrap. My strong recommendation to you guys, if you're going to work in this industry, you need to learn Bootstrap. Only every employer everywhere pretty much uses Bootstrap. So I would strongly urge you guys to do the Bootstrap assignment. I don't know why you wouldn't do the Bootstrap assignment. You have the opportunity to get strong in the kind of skills that are going to get you hired in this industry. Take that opportunity. So I'm going to say you won't get marked down for not doing the Bootstrap exercise. So we're going to, guys, we're going to keep going. Did anyone have any questions on that? Who didn't get at least the pseudo selector to work, sir? Okay, so what did you run into? Like, okay, awesome. We're out of time for that exercise. Yeah, so we'll get with you after that. Be sure to get with somebody. Like if you're having problems, if you can't get your CSS to link up, reach out, ask questions. We don't want anybody left behind. But at the same time, we have to keep moving on because we've got a lot to cover. So I'll help you out, or Jonathan will help you out after this. Everybody else, for the rest of you guys, most of you guys able to see a link color change or something on hover? Yeah? Everybody could do that. Raise their hand. Okay, cool. So most of you. So, and you guys will get it. For those of you who didn't, do conceptually kind of see how this works. We're applying styles to things that we're hovering over, things that are active. Here's a chart that shows you guys some of the different states of buttons. You have, first of all, your default state. When you come to a site, you see all the buttons in the default state. Then you have the hover state. When you hover over them, they'll become highlighted. They'll have a different look and feel, right? When your mouse is hovering over them, that's the hover state. Then we have what's called the focus state. The focus state is mostly for form elements, right? We discussed this. So like when you put your cursor in a text box and it maybe gets a blue border around it or it gets highlighted, that's what's called the focus state. The fourth one, the active state, you don't see as much. That's what happens like when a button has already been clicked and you've already visited that website. That's called the active state. That one you probably won't use as much as the other three. So like high level conceptually, do you guys get this? Is everybody wrapping your heads around this? Okay, awesome. I want to make sure, I really want to make sure none of you guys get left behind. Yes, Sam?
Are any of these particularly important for mobile? Do they behave differently on mobile than?
So on mobile, you don't have the hover states as much because there's no pointing device, right, on mobile. So mostly you have like the active state, like when you're pushing down on it, you get a link. That's the same as like the mouse down effect or the active effect on a website. So that's the main difference. So if you're designing for mobile, you shouldn't rely heavily on hover states because they won't be there. Any other questions on that, guys? Now's the time. If anybody's unclear on something to do with this. Okay, we're going to press on. So beyond CSS hacking, it's going to get weirder. It's going to get more complicated. It's going to get harder to wrap your heads around, I promise, for this whole week. And then we'll be done with CSS, and you guys won't have to think about it again for a little while. So here's a quick refresher on HTML and CSS. As I told you, we teach you guys by repetition. This is a great, great way to learn. So when we cover things again, maybe some of you will remember them. Maybe some of you won't. There's a reason that we do it this way. So kind of trust the process. So HTML, we all know, is hypertext markup language. That handles the content. CSS handles the appearance, the styling. So HTML and CSS together are the languages of the web. They define both the content and aesthetics of a web page, handling everything from the layouts, colors, fonts, and content placement. So JavaScript is like the third leg of that stool, basically. It handles the logic, the animation, the interactions. So is everybody with that so far? You guys have all probably heard this by now. It's all review for you, right? Awesome. So HTML alone is like writing papers in Notepad. It can only write unformatted text. Sorry. We had these exact same slides last week, so it was. Yeah, so, but this is the new slide deck from this week, so I don't know. So here's CSS in a nutshell. Has anybody felt like this? I know I have. Yeah, you just get that one edge right, and then the other one slips off. It's kind of like, so there's a better way. There's a better way. Does this look familiar to anyone? Most of us probably have seen websites like this with the Jumbotron. This is our friend Bootstrap. Bootstrap takes care of a lot of the annoying kind of nuances of CSS, so we don't have to. It gives us a nice high-level kind of abstraction layer to play with while it handles the nitty-gritty of making CSS work across different devices, across different browsers, across all of the different things CSS needs to work across. Has everyone heard of Bootstrap by now? Okay, awesome. And you guys all know Bootstrap comes from Twitter, right? Okay, sounds good. So now we're going to get a chance, and I'm just going to go over this with you guys. And then you guys are going to get a chance to play with Bootstrap on your own. Your homework assignment is going to be turning your bio pages that you made. For those of you who made the portfolio bio pages, you're going to make them work now with Bootstrap. For those of you who chose to do the outline assignment, we're going to give you a sample completed version of the week 1 homework. And you're going to be adding Bootstrap to that, okay? Everyone, please do the Bootstrap assignment. Everyone good with that? Everyone in agreement with that? You're all going to do the Bootstrap assignment, not the other assignment? Okay. Very good. So let me demo for you guys a quick Bootstrap site. Okay, guys, I know it's a lot to absorb and cover, and we all have questions, and we're going to get them answered for you guys. But for now, I'd like you to focus up here, please. So this is a sample Bootstrap site. So the main problem Bootstrap handles for us very, very nicely is different size devices, because we all know today a lot of people are looking at websites on different sizes of cell phones, different sizes of tablets. They're all different kinds of device sizes out there. So Bootstrap handles this problem for us really nicely. If we go down to a mobile size, it'll put our whole nav in a nice slide down menu for us, which works nicely on mobile. If we slide it back out to desktop, you'll see the menu comes back up here like this. You have buttons, which are already nicely styled. You have icons to go with the buttons that are done using what?
Awesome.
Font Awesome. Right. Glad to see you guys are paying attention. And then here we have columns. So the way that Bootstrap handles the problem of columns working across different size devices, where some devices will have a wider screen, so you'll need 2 or 3 columns, and other devices will be narrower, so you'll only need 1 column. So they came up with a concept to handle this, which is actually quite old. It goes back to the days of print, and it's called the grid. So there is a 12-bar grid going across every web page, and you decide how many columns of the grid you want each column to be, basically. So if you wanted a 2-column layout, you would divide 12 by 6, because you have 12 bars, and if you want it to go across half the page, it would go across 6 of the 12 bars. Does that kind of make sense to everyone? Let me see if I can pull up a graphic right here real quick to explain. 12-bar grid graphic. Okay, let's try this one. Yeah, I'm going to look up Bootstrap grid. Bootstrap grid. Okay, so this one explains it pretty well. I think I've looked at this one before. What's that? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so you guys go ahead and look at that. I don't have Slack open right now. But you'll see. So say you want a website with 12 columns. That's not a very, that doesn't happen a lot, right? We don't see that use case a lot, but it does happen. So if you wanted 12 bars, you would make each bar, or each column 1 bar. If you want 6 bars, you make each column 2 bars. If you want 4 columns, you make each column 3 bars. If you want 3 columns, which is a more common use case, you make every column 4 bars. If you want 2 columns, you make every column 6 bars. So how do we do this? How do we assign a number of bars to a column? Well, we do it with CSS classes. So you'll see if I inspect element here, well, of course, this went back down to a 1-column layout now since I opened up my web inspector, but we can fix that by moving this down to the bottom. So now you'll see I have my 2-column layout, and you see this CSS class we give it, call LG6. That's telling it on a large screen, make this column 6 bars wide. So we have 2 columns that are 6 bars wide on a large screen. Now, on a small screen, it goes back to the default, which is 12 bars wide per column. So that's why it goes like that. So if I were to add call SM small class to here as well, just to show you guys, call SM6, and then I do the same thing for this one as well. Now, even when I go to a smaller screen size, like a mobile screen size, this will stay at 2 columns. Oh, even there. But then it gets down to extra small, and that's why it does that. See, so if I change this to call XS, yeah, so if I change this to call XS6 to work on an extra small screen size, and no, I don't want to save a file. Sorry. It's not letting me go where I want to. Call dash XS dash. Yeah, it just doesn't like me. I'm not even doing anything that. Am I what? No, it just doesn't like me. Okay, we're going to try this one more time. Call dash.
It looks like either like the controller or the shift key is like stuck.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's that thing. I've had that annoying thing happen on my laptop for a while now. And it always happens when I have people watching me. Never when I'm by myself. Okay, so call dash XS dash 6. We're going to do the same thing down on the bottom. Call dash XS dash 6. And now, hopefully the C now, even as it gets smaller, it still shrinks down. Because I added that call XS6. Now when I refresh the page, it's only going to have the call LG6 class. And now when I make it smaller, it'll go to 1 column. Do you guys all kind of see how that works? And we're going to get to go over this again all day on Saturday. We're going to get to play with this stuff a lot more. So if it doesn't make sense to you immediately, don't worry too much about it. But we are going to slack out an exercise for you guys, so you'll have a chance to play with Bootstrap on your own a little bit. Any questions on Bootstrap while we're sending that out to you guys? Yeah.
Is it always going to be 12?
It will always be 12 columns. So even on mobile, even as the screen size gets smaller, it stays 12 columns. You just get to choose how many of the columns you want to take up for each thing on each device. So usually like on mobile, things will be 12 columns wide, right? Each box will be 12 columns wide. And if you have like a 2-column layout like this on the desktop, then it'll be 6 columns wide. So 12 columns is always the default. Good question, Madison. Now.
So that,
if it goes into like mobile, do you have to set the size of the actual screen you want to set the width to?
No.
Or Bootstrap automatically just compresses all that?
No, that's a great question. Thanks. No, it does that for you. So if you were to do the media query exercise, then you would have to do all that stuff yourself, and you would figure out what we call the breakpoints, which is where it switches from like the tablet layout to the mobile layout to the desktop. Yeah, so Bootstrap actually handles that for you. It has the breakpoints predefined. You can override them yourself if you want to, but their breakpoints, have a lot of research and stuff going into them. So it's pretty good to just defer to what they do, since they're a big company. They have a lot of money to invest on all their research and stuff. Any other questions?
So that class that you're adding to that div is just basically telling it how to react depending on the size of the screen.
Yeah, it's telling it how to react based on the size of the screen. It's telling it how many bars out of the 12-bar grid to take up for each different size of the screen. So that's why you have. So there are 3 different things. Call tells it call. So you'll put call dash, and then you're going to tell it 2 different things. How many bars of the screen you want it to take up and which device type that's referring to, right? So LG6 means that on a large screen like a desktop, it should take up 6 columns. XS6 tells it on a small screen like a mobile phone, it should take up 6 columns.
So the Bootstrap code just, the library or whatever, just selects the one that's most appropriate for that screen.
Yeah, well, you actually tell it what you want it to look like. You're saying, hey, Bootstrap, give me a 2-column layout on desktop and give me a 1-column layout on mobile. You specify that by the classes.
You call large 2 and then call small 3, like different.
Yeah, right. You can do different ones. So if you want it to be like 3 columns on desktop and 2 columns on tablet or something, you can do that too. It's I think you're getting the hang of it and what it does. It's kind of hard to wrap your heads around this stuff at first, but you guys will get it.
Were we only div or more elements on the HTML?
Can you only use it on div or on more elements? You can use it on any block level element. Did you guys all hear that? Can we only use it on div or any element? So you can use it on article, you can use it on nav, you can use it on footer, you can use it on any block level element. I wouldn't recommend using it on paragraph or H1. You should usually have like a wrapper div or some type of wrapper container to use, okay? Okay, and guys, this exercise is going to be a partner exercise, so get with your partner. You guys all still have your partners? If you don't have a partner, find a partner. Don't want anyone learning Bootstrap alone. Right, or make a triad if there's somebody left over, form a triad. Jonathan will be your partner. Okay. Why don't you partner with Martha? Or you can partner with them. Well, they already have two. I don't want Jacqueline to not have a partner. All right, do whatever you guys want. I don't really care, but whatever makes you guys feel more comfortable. Yeah, and let her join in with you too. Yes, sure. Okay, so you have Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is it's like you said, I would recommend you hire Bootstrap. I would recommend but for now, just include that.
Oh, it's Sublime? I was thinking
Yeah.
Yeah, they're inside of the HTML file. You can say like instruction 1, answer questions, all that stuff.
We copy everything.
okay, where to do
Hey guys, if I could have everyone's attention for a minute, please. I'm actually going to demo for you guys what you're supposed to be doing here and what it's supposed to look like, since I know a lot of you have had questions. And then you're going to get a little while longer to work on this one. I think we can take maybe a half an hour to let you guys really play around with Bootstrap and let it sink in a bit. So you're going to want to get a layout that looks pretty much like this. The exercise snaps, guys. The exercise we sent out to you guys right now, it looks, sorry, 11 Bootstrap powered. So here's the unresolved. Oh, it was the one before that. Okay, my fault, my fault. So it's this one, the where's CSS?
The instructions are in the HTML file as comments.
Okay.
We just did pseudo, yeah.
Okay, so it's this one. Okay, and then instructions are here. So what are they trying to do? Sorry.
Comments section, if you go to the comments.
Yeah.
Go to the comments.
Yeah.
You can answer those questions up top.
Okay, so you're going to be answering these questions, everyone. Where is the HTML drawing its styles from? You see that there's some styles in here. These aren't just your browser default styles that we talked about. So you guys are going to work together with your partners and talk about these things. Where is it drawing its styles from? And how does our browser know which element to style in each way? So you're going to be answering with your partners those two questions. In addition, because I'm giving you guys additional time to work on this, see if you can play around with the different Bootstrap column classes that I showed you guys, right? So I showed you XS, column 6, small, column 6. Try to change those column sizes. But first, work with your partner and answer those two basic fundamental questions. And if you have any comments on it, please raise your hands. We'll come around to help. Okay?
Yeah, it's drawing the styles from the Bootstrap style. Actually, if you go to Bootstrap, Yeah. No, but this is the actual stuff. Oh, yeah, because it doesn't.
I'm going to try.
No, the point is, you don't. You change it. You change it by adjusting so you have all of these. Do you remember how we define a class? Element that gets all of the styles that we put in. Instead of doing that, they have.
Do they have like a reference of all the different classes and styles?
Yeah, it's on bootstrapcdn.com. I'm going to go over it with the class after this, but if you just Google Bootstrap, you'll find it.
It's just like you were wrong. So, yeah, already previous.
So is it extra small, medium, large, whatever?
Yeah.
And then how do you then separate it by numbers? So you were saying. Oh, okay, I understand. But is LG, what is to show the table. To not stack, to just consolidate.
So we actually did. Okay, all right.
So would I do?
No, it's the name of the class. So go back to your, let's do it big.
Oh, yeah, you were talking about.
This should all line up. Okay, yeah, that's gonna be copy 4, right? 4 is,
So I just. Wonderful, okay. Oh, there's two. Because they're being overwritten. And the reason not necessarily.
Oh, yeah, so now they're gonna, so now we're good.
This is
Yeah, so that's
No, I thought up to just.
Oh, yeah, that is.
I got every sentence.
So you can actually copy paste that. So you can actually look line by line.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. Right, so, number of columns that we want to That would be set on a large size screen or bigger, like, Now, when it's sitting down, yeah, so it still does that, but it breaks it as different that gets added out. Yeah, that's what it's for. It's for responsiveness. So we have like all the different sides of the mobile, tablet, desktop. Yeah, so that's no, it's CSS.
Yeah, I've been doing that lately, but
So that's gonna make it really column, yeah, so there's 12 bars, right? So you want to make it, so you're talking how to find out. So if you want a 3-column layout, tell it each column yeah, so nothing is will change. Yeah, so go outside the column. Okay, guys, how's everyone doing with that? You guys want about another 5 minutes to play with Bootstrap? Yeah. Sure. Everyone good? Everyone wants another 5 minutes. Raise their hands. Everyone good? Who's good? Who feels like they've done enough and want more instruction? Okay, we'll take another 5 minutes. Another class?
That's
So these classes, do they have to be on Saturday, or is this, what was it? The instructions I didn't, I was messing with
So basically, just like, yeah. And if you don't have a specific style, you go.
That's copy paste.
We can reuse that. You gotta make your couch look very, all of the
No, I see, we find this specific, it's
Right, right. You don't want to make someone, they said about and then overriding.
And you have to say by the order in which you would go through.
So for the ID, I have my name, current picture of my bio, and then you have another class and I have about
You're saying
this class. They're both sections. So both sections is probably creating another class just to say what goes with them right and so that section. That makes sense. So I had separate sheets, so I wanted to do the one. This one. My contact
So the status assessment, we say this number.
For now, while you guys are here, servers all over the world.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I can show you. No, the thing is that you
You made a rule for it.
the problem is that this is the last one,
You push those things.
yeah. I tried to,
no, so bootstrap, I use but it should still be.
Really?
I did the first one and I found foundation.
Okay, guys, let's start to bring that to a close. Finish your sentence, finish your paragraph. Let's bring it to a close. Okay, snaps. You guys did great. I'm impressed. Does everyone feel pretty okay about Bootstrap? At least at like a 3, you're kind of understanding what it does? Okay, awesome. And we're going to get a lot more chances to look at it. Saturday is going to be another awesome, fun-filled day where we'll probably do nothing but Bootstrap. And you guys will get help with your homework, which is Bootstrap. So we'll have a lot more opportunities to talk about Bootstrap. I wanted to now show all of you the Bootstrap website, which is a great resource. And you can see the wealth of different types of components and fun things you can get for your website with Bootstrap. Oh, okay. Get Bootstrap, yeah. Whoever bought this domain name is a genius. I hope they charge Twitter like $1 million or something. Okay, so get started. So we can see some examples of how people are using Bootstrap. Custom components. So you can have things like pricing plans. They give you this whole pricing chart in case you have a website where you want to have a pricing chart. They just give you this. It's fully responsive. So if you look at it on a mobile type layout, it'll go down to 1 column probably, I think. Yeah. So this has the buttons. It's fully styled. Some other good examples are there's a checkout. So if you want like a fully styled form, you can get that from Bootstrap. Again, it's fully responsive, all of that kind of stuff. So this is a really good resource if you guys want to put together websites quickly and you need reusable components like this. Because as developers, we don't want to have to reinvent the wheel every time. Most of the work in creating any type of website has already been done for you a million different times in a million different ways. So we can learn from our mistakes and you leverage other people's work. So you guys can look at this site on your own. You'll see all of the different types of components they make available to you. Carousels. So you can look through. If any of you have seen this type of layout.
Sam asked a good question.
What was the question, Sam?
They have bios.
Do they have bios? Well, no, but they have the types of components you guys will use on your Bootstrap bios. And by using this site, you should have all the resources you need and more to make a totally stellar bio. So yeah, you can add this. You have buttons. Buttons are another big thing that Bootstrap comes in handy with. You have a sticky footer. This can come in handy too if you ever want to have a footer that sticks to the bottom of your content. So everyone clear on this? Everyone know how to get to this site? Everyone know? Yes, Sam.
What are the conditions?
Is
it open license?
Oh, that is a good question. I believe that it's dual licensed under MIT and GNU GPL, General Public License. I believe, and the best way to check that is to go to their GitHub.
So developers really only use Bootstrap when they're creating custom websites, but not like when they're developing WordPress.
No, WordPress. So a lot of WordPress uses what are called themes to style their sites. A lot of WordPress themes make use of Bootstrap. In fact, I think almost all of them now use Bootstrap. So that's just another level of abstraction. It's just kind of another layer. But it does use Bootstrap. And if you know how to use Bootstrap, then it will make it easier for you to customize the WordPress themes as well. So in terms of licensing, oh, did I pass it? It's MIT. Where does it say? Wait.
Right next to the contributors, releases, brands on the right.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it is MIT licensed. It might be available under GNU GPL too. Okay. Any other questions? You guys know how to get to this site? You know how to take the code? So let's try an example. Yes, Madison. No, so we didn't get to really talk about how to include Bootstrap in our site. You just do it with a link. It came in the instructions that were sent out to each of you guys. You just use the link to the Bootstrap CDN. CDN, by the way, everybody stands for Content Delivery Network. So it's just a really fast way of serving out files all over the world. They have mirrors for their servers all over the world in every continent. So it's a way to get your content out around the world really fast. So those links are fast. So as long as you include, Madison, the one link to Bootstrap, which came on your exercise, that basically includes all of these different components. Yes, at least the CSS for them. And I'll go over how to actually include one now. So yeah, so I'll just go over this I will go over this with all of you guys so you'll kind of understand how it works. Yeah, so you'll go to the site and basically copy the code and paste it into your websites. So let me show you guys sort of how this component will look. Company name. So say I want to use this pricing one. I'm going to go to this link. Sorry, I'm just waiting for this to... So I'm going to do view page source. Sometimes it's easier to do a view page source than it is anything else. So I'm going to just copy this top part here from container on down. Oh, okay, sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so we copy all of this. Hang on, I'll get to questions in a minute. And then I'm just going to paste it in here at the bottom. Actually, let me go ahead and okay, so we can see this already includes the Bootstrap CSS and the Bootstrap's theme CSS. I am going to go back here and copy all of this. So this is all typically you will do is just paste in the CSS code we copied, and then I'm going to go to my browser, open that same file we just edited. And now you can see we have it, but it's still sort of missing some things. So live coding is not always the best, by the way. I don't recommend it, but this is how it will basically work. You guys will copy the code from one of these websites and So say you have this container. Here's a good way, guys, to do this. Sometimes you can edit as HTML, do copy all. So that way I've copied this whole container. Now I can hit Control Z and paste all of this stuff in. Save. And now when I refresh, not working. Well, I'm not sure why this isn't working, but we're going to give you guys a chance to work on this on your own. So we have one more exercise, right, Jonathan? The bootstrap buttons. So in this exercise, we're going to show you guys basically how to include bootstrap buttons in your site. This is the completed thing you will be looking for with the boring buttons. So I guess this example I have here is wrong. I do apologize for that. But basically, you're going to get this HTML file here sent out to you, and it's going to give you some instructions for how to add a bootstrap button into your page. You will follow those instructions, and then you should end up with something that looks like this. I'm going to leave the solved version here on the screen, and we'll get rid of... Yeah, so it should look like this. You're going to add Bootstrap. You're going to add a Bootstrap theme. And you should get this. So here are the boring buttons that your site basically comes with. And after adding Bootstrap's buttons, you get a lot of styling on your buttons. You get a nice rollover hover effect on your buttons. Is everyone seeing that? You guys, so right. So you're going to start out with something like this here on top. And by the end, you should have what's there on the bottom. Does everybody have what they need to do to get started on this? Yeah, sure. So let's talk about the grid system. Before we even get started on this, I know a lot of you probably have questions on the grid system. So go ahead.
My question is, how do I decide which kind of graphics to use with the grid? If it's XM or SM or LG? How do I decide which one I'm going to use? Okay, that was a great question. Did anyone else have that question? How do you decide whether to use LG, SM? You were clear on that, Jacqueline? Yeah. You already know? It's the device. They are related to the device. So if you want to target, say, a small screen device, like a mobile device, you would use XS. That would target a mobile device and anything smaller. If you wanted to target like a tablet, say, that's like a medium-sized device, you would use the MG. If you wanted to do a really big computer screen, you would use XL for extra large, or LG for like a medium-sized computer screen. Does that make sense? If you want to run in every kind of device, what do you use? So it will cascade down. So if you set it for extra small, that will cascade up to everything else. So say you want to have it be 2 columns on every device, starting with an extra small device. You could put col 6XS, and then you would have a 2-column layout on every device. If you wanted it to be tablet and up, you would use col MD-6, and that would give you a 2-column layout on tablet, and anything bigger, anything smaller would get the default, which is a 1-column layout. Yeah.
That's the mobile first theme that I was really reading. So which one you have to think mobile first?
You have to think about what first?
Mobile first.
Mobile first is one design methodology that goes more into UI UX design, which is a separate course. But it does make you think about how things should work on mobile. It might not necessarily be mobile first, but I guess they did use a mobile first philosophy when they created it. Yeah, and it does also follow the strategy of progressive enhancement. There are 2 different sort of design philosophies in websites. There's what's called graceful degradation, which means that you make your site look nice for the users that you care about who have the nice new computers and the nice new browsers. And then it degrades gracefully for the people who don't have everything they need to look at your site nicely. It'll at least be functional for them. At least they'll be able to come to it and get the information they need. Then there's another philosophy called progressive enhancement, where you start with the bottom. You start with the guy who has a BlackBerry from 15 years ago and make it work on that. And then you slowly start adding the features and adding the features until you're all the way up to the nice new MacBooks with the Chrome browser. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bootstrap follows the second strategy, the strategy of progressive enhancement, where you start out with a really basic kind of design and then you keep adding things onto it to make it better for the better devices. Any other questions? Yes, Sam.
There's that we use classes to modify things with Bootstrap. And unlike what we were doing, I guess we have multiple classes and they're like separated by spaces.
By spaces, yeah.
Okay. Does that mean they're all on the same level when they're in the quotes, or is that just the way that? Oh, you probably can't define two classes in the same set with two different class things.
No, they override each other based on the screen size. That's how it works. It uses breakpoints and they override each other based on the screen size. So if you have, did everyone understand Sam's question?
I don't think
Okay. So basically, sometimes you'll want to add more than one class. Like maybe I'll have a layout where on mobile it'll be 2 columns, and then on desktop it'll be 3 columns, right? Or maybe it'll be on tablet it'll be 2 columns, on mobile it'll be 1 column, and on desktop it'll be 3 columns. That's a pretty common use case, right? Because desktop is biggest, we can fit 3 columns. Tablet's a little smaller, we can fit 2 columns. Then mobile's really small, so we can only fit 1 column. So if we want to do that, we would put 3 classes on each of those elements. One would be for desktop, it would be col-lg-4, right, to get 3 columns. Is everyone there with me? We divide 12 by 3, and we get 4. So if we want 3 columns on desktop, we would do col-lg-4. Then to add the part for tablet, we hit space, then do col-md-6. That gives us the 2-column layout on mobile or on tablet. Then mobile is sort of inherited because the default is 1 column, so you don't need to specify it. But if you wanted to specify it, you would do col-sm-12, and that would make it 1 column on mobile. So by doing that, we can define several different states for each element based on the size of the screen. And they are separated with a space, but there's no order of inheritance. You got a question?
Yeah, if you want to change that red button and you want to do it black, you just go on CSS.
Yeah, you can go in CSS, and there are classes for that. So if we inspect, you'll see that in the classes, it's probably going to say something like button red or so button danger. And the other one is button primary. So this is kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but Bootstrap also allows you to set what are called variables. We'll get into looking at less and Sass a little later and get even more crazier and confusing with our CSS. But for now, basically, you can define different color variables. So say you have a scheme of colors, as many websites do. Instead of having to reiterate those hexadecimal color values and then having to go through and update all of them if you ever want to change the color, they use the philosophy that you can put the color once and then just reference it from there. So danger references this red color. This button dash primary also references a primary color. And we can take a look at this in the CSS. So you see button dash danger defines the button shadow, the box set, and also an RGB color value, which we could change here. So short answer is, yeah, you can just change it in the CSS, but Bootstrap has different ways of doing that, and you can read the Bootstrap documentation to find out exactly how to. And the best way to find the Bootstrap documentation is Google. So you would look up Bootstrap docs buttons. See, and then you just get to the documentation, and it'll tell you everything about how to color in buttons and all of that. So these are the different colors we have here that you can use, and you use these classes to make them these different colors. And this is all available for you on the documentation. So if you guys want to go look at the docs and figure out how to use 2 or 3 of these colors, that would be great. We're going to take about 10 minutes for this exercise. There were no more questions, right, before we get started? Okay.
What are the versions of the Bootstrap things? Like, you're using, it's like an old one.
There's 4 and 5 now. 3 is a good one to learn on. They've added a bunch of new features in 4, but for our purposes, for just learning how it works, 3 is great. And then, yeah, and then as you learn more about it,
I know, so I buttons and focus and we copied this in the stat sheet that. Oh, wait. No, this is right, here's one. Yeah, so we used the one that was on the inside. And then this is what happens. You copied it.
wait, it looks like this is where we use the network. You go to network. Yeah. I just do that, but there's some stuff that not shown. So the reason for that is probably that you
I mean, there's the same thing. You're just adding more stuff that you look to create.
I mean, it's also.
You have it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get
It should remain this.
No, it's just. Well, that's just the, what do you mean, like, what you learn from all the data? You have 66. Right there. So you're missing one, there's, oh, next.
I am.
So we're.
I'll tell you right now. You said access.
Yeah, this one.
We have enough.
I think their choice is.
But now it's starting to.
Like calls on each other.
Right, yeah, so.
It was terrible.
Right, so you should probably like stick with.
Yeah, but yeah, that's
Yeah, but the, right, right.
Until it's 8, right?
So I should.
Yeah, so just use that. Use that.
Wait, what is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take a look at
That's the best way. Back on your station.
Oh, that's Spanish, put it in there.
No, I'm sorry.
I like it.
Okay,
So you see, you should go through the So what I did, I just copied that. All 3 lines. Okay, so you're getting.
and now,
Copy this. Put it in.
And then coffee in between the.
Okay.
So between each body part, not the body.
Where I got this.
Okay, so.
Because it was.
Yeah. Yeah. How did I get here?
Go back.
I'll just put in another.
Very good.
I'll see you.
These are legal counsel or startup. General counsel, I should say. I mean, no, that's not
Okay, yeah, we gotta wrap up this. Okay, guys, feel free to stay after class and continue learning about Bootstrap. Bootstrap is great. Bootstrap will help you guys out with your career. Guys, can you all focus up here for a minute, and then we're gonna break. So before we break, any questions on Bootstrap? No questions.
We do, but.
Yeah, they're gonna come later, and they will, and we'll have a lot more time to look at it. So if it doesn't all make sense now, that's okay.
You save his way on overriding slides.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Guys, give yourselves a hand. You guys did a great job today. You guys did everything. Everyone, homework will be due this Tuesday, okay? So we'll get a chance to go, yeah, homework number 2 will be due this Tuesday. Now homework number 1 will be due this Saturday. If for any reason you can't get it done, see myself, see other Jonathan, use your resources. We're here to help you.
Thanks, dude.
Yes.
Saturday at midnight or?
Saturday at midnight. Yeah, it's gonna be Saturday at midnight. And if there's any question you're not gonna get done, reach out to us.
Jonathan,
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Reach out to us.
Well, that's what I meant. So is it the beginning of Saturday or?
No, it's okay. Oh my God, you're complicated.
We love
If you guys need more time, we can give you more time. Yeah. Not right now. I just look for yeah, I think
Well, I mean, yeah.
Hey guys, Saturday, come prepared. Everybody really eager meetings on Saturday, because Saturday we're gonna have another tough day. Well, okay, if you don't, yes.
No, have bulletproof, no, you're supposed to say have your bulletproof, octane, MCT, octane.
Oh, yeah, I take that stuff, that's.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Everybody listening, I can get a bulletproof. No, Saturday we'll see what the big one. No, I will be recording, I will record everything, put everything online. I didn't have it working before, now it's working.
Yeah.
I don't know, I talked to,
So this is, I did the first one. I said it on every, the one box we done the first one.
Okay, so, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Get out of here! It's so funny because my mom's name is Tina, and we call her Tina when she gets in that word, and we go, oh no!